Kia ora koutou, hello everybody and welcome back to this Epich Aotearoa Create a Better Future podcast with my brother-in-law and co-founder Mr. Brian Osman and myself, Joe Hotai. Bro, it's good to see you, man. It feels like a long time since we've caught up and connected properly like this. How are you, bro?
Yeah, kia ora, bro. Yeah, good. And it has been a long time. It feels like it. It's just, time has flown fast. Who would have thought we're in March already?
Yeah,
Gosh,
I reckon, eh?
just got it done.
Omicron spreading the business everywhere and shutting things down. We've got, actually there's an update on that. There I was harassing you and your family about having Osmicron, I was calling it. And one of our sons has contracted it. He's positive.
No way.
We did so what's this, day 5 for us? So we did our day 3 rat test, I think they call it, whatever, rapid antigen self-test. So we got the kits. My wife ordered those online. I went and picked them up. All of us did our day 3 test, and all of us are negative except for our son that's tested positive. His one still came up positive on his. So that's the day 3 test done, but then I think we've got to do our test again at day 10. So we're just sort of keeping to ourselves as much as we can here at home.
So you locked him away in his room?
He's been locking himself in his room, but he's been out and about. He says he's fine. He goes, I had a little bit of a cough and stuff, but other than that, he's fine. He's been training, keeping busy in the garage and stuff. But apparently, I don't know what the story is, but he can go back to work on Tuesday. So wife's looking into whatever the details are in there because she likes to keep on top of that stuff. And so,
fair enough.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. He's happy to go back to work. He's just sitting around at home. When he's not training, he's lying down, not doing too much. And not because he's feeling sick either, just because he's bored. So he's finished school, he's working, and he's just happy to go back to work. So, just on that, he's working to save. So he's got a dental, so then him and his older brother can then they'll then put in their papers and then to head off on a mission. So we'll see how all of that goes. He's got to get his wisdom teeth taken out.
Oh, no way.
His 4 wisdom teeth. So his older brother didn't need to. So his wisdoms don't need to come out. But the younger brother who's working now needs to get his out. So his appointment is booked for next Saturday, the 19th. But anyway, that off to the side, I guess it's a bit of an update on how things are here. We're just going to burpee the COVID away, bro.
COVID away.
Yeah, we'll scare it with burpees, brother. We'll just... so
six count burpees, one pump burpees.
One pump, 6 counts. Just depends. Yeah, if it starts rearing its head, we might try and scare it with some Navy SEALs or some 22 counts. See how that goes. We'll either end up completely wrecked, or the burpees or the COVID will not want to come near it because they'll be like, stuff that.
I think it goes like this, down your street and then detours your house.
bypass.
Bypass. That's it.
Yeah, the blinking thing hasn't bypassed us today. Probably because our son has been working and he hasn't been able to get any burpees in, so we've been letting him off. But he's been training anyway since he's been tested positive for it. So, but it's been good, bro. It's been good in the house. And how about your household? How's things going there?
Oh, good. So it's we're way past that surge or that wave of the Omicron. So I guess it's karma, bro. It's finally got to New Zealand. But
it is, karma, right, for me gobbing off.
But on this end, we're all good. So it's kind of gone back to normal. So can't really complain. It's just a different world now, I suppose, especially in light of current events and all the things that have. Current now it's just a strange time in a lot of ways, but you do what you can do and just keep positive, keep creating better futures if you can, and just moving on.
Awesome. I love how you mentioned that, actually, because that probably ties in nicely where we can start delving into some of the I guess what this the update of this podcast and stuff is for anyway, which we'll post next week. But creating a better future as and where we can, I like that statement. And I love how I guess some of it, and I'd be keen to hear your thoughts. Like when we were first starting this, there was definitely some anxiety and apprehension from my side. Like, can I do this? Can we do this? And to be honest, I was thinking, well, I know my thoughts were, I know Brian can. Can I support well enough to be able to connect with people and have them share their lived experiences in a way that's going to help others, and try to hopefully create a better future. And I guess for a number of people, it's been awesome, and I've forwarded on some of those emails to you that we've received from people that have really been, and we won't name them here because I haven't asked them, but that have really been uplifted and positively impacted, and are taking steps towards creating their own better future, with not only for themselves to be the best version of themselves, have been some of the words that they've used, but also for their families, and that can only create more and more, I guess, goodness and better things, not only for them and their family, but extending out into their communities and broader. So yeah, that's been awesome. What have been your thoughts, bro, as you've read through some of those messages? Because I haven't sent you all of them, but I've forwarded you some of them, and it's been cool as we've had a little bit of message back and forth. Man, that's so awesome, that's cool. But it's great to know that it is having an impact, and just tying in with the words that you mentioned earlier. What have been your thoughts on that, bro?
It's funny you say that, because it's like I had the exact same thoughts the other way around when we first started this. I was like, oh man, I reckon do just half as good a job as what you could, because man, you're good with the kupu, you the words and articulating those words when you're kōrero and stuff, and I'm going, because even though I do training and deliver training and things, I found it a different kettle of fish sitting behind a mic and interviewing somebody. I felt like I was really concentrating. So those first few interviews, man, I feel like, as I reflect back, I feel like more like a robot, if that makes sense. Read the script, do the script, like this. But it takes its time. It takes a while to get comfortable and into the flow, regardless of how or what experiences you've got, what backgrounds you've got. So I actually was reflecting on this yesterday. I was running a training course, and actually it was Thursday, and we were talking about how we pivot, persevere. The question we would often ask, and I reflect on this because we were talking about it, and oftentimes in our spaces we want to get feedback as quickly as possible, but so that we can make those decisions, right? And then we were talking this, and I was talking about this in a training class, and it made me just realize, hey, we did a number of little pivots all the way through, and the pivot on this series, the Who Dares Wins series, or In the Service of Others, Who Dares Wins, it was another example of a really good pivot that came about through just continuing the course of our interview, and that was with Jared, and because of that spawned a thought, and now we've got this, and so while all the other interviews prior to this series, In the Service of Others, they've been really good. I feel like they've helped set up the foundation for this, in the sense that not only did we get to practice or to do or to go through and to find our rhythm, but we also get to hear these stories as well, and it's led us on to where else this series might take us. So in terms of feedback, it's been awesome. It's been really nice seeing that some people have been impacted or influenced, or they've resonated with things, and then they've gone back and seen the earlier podcasts and of our business people and our and people they've taken different directions and so forth, and go, oh, how does that fit in, and be able to tell the story. I mean, recently we went and I had a chat with Stuart Campbell, and there's I was going to speak about that. Ninjutsu, The Ninjutsu, and which was totally different but fascinating at the same time, but related. And it was so cool. So being able to hear that feedback, and knowing, I guess for me, for us, it's good to be able to hear that we're heading on the right track, because that's our feedback, and go, okay, we continue, and it's, I guess at some stage, if we don't get that feedback, then we perhaps look to change. That's a good point. I mean, I like I actually, with everything going on at the moment on my side anyway, I haven't listened to the conversation with Stuart yet. I'll get around to it, but so I can't speak to what was covered in there, but I did have a catch up with him prior to you going ahead and making the booking for that podcast, and seems like a lovely guy, great guy, and very, very passionate about
his journey and what he tries to do and what he's trying to share in regards to the practice of ninjutsu and that sort of thing. And so you can maybe touch on that a little bit more as we go, but he seems like a really lovely guy. And so I'm sure the message and the conversation, because I think you broke it up into 2 parts, eh?
Yeah, we actually we had this idea of an hour, but it went for 2.5, and so I split it into
as they do.
Like
that, yeah. It's just time seems to fly by, man.
Yeah, no, but it was just such fascinating. It was just so interesting. It was fascinating, the stories that he had to share and the philosophies that underpin all that, which is essentially you can apply to not only just martial arts but to everything. So yeah, it was everything wrapped up into one. And it's hard to describe. Right. Yeah,
I need to get over there. And go. You guess what?
I was gonna say. I guess it's the things that he talked about is probably some of the things that you see when you did your MMA days, or some of the hand-to-hand type stuff that you would have done over the years, and you probably can see the connections with it, because the more he spoke and the more he talked about the ninpo, I think was what he called it, these 3 tiers, and I think the physical, and I forget the other part, and then there's the spiritual part. But how they all connect together, and it was just interesting to see if you step back and see how everything can connect to everything else. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, nice, awesome. Sounds like it. Well, I'll get around to having listened to that. What I really liked as well was some of the images that he sent through of his garden or his property and stuff?
Yeah. Yes, he's got a lifestyle somewhere in probably an undisclosed location somewhere.
Yeah. It looked like something out of Mr. Miyagi's place on the Karate Kid. When I looked at some of the pictures, I was like, get out there and wax on, wax off. Yeah, no, but yes, like I said, he seems like a really nice guy, and it's great to hear you did send me through some feedback and said that you enjoyed it, and that it'll be split up into 2 parts. So I'll get around to listening to that as well. Which sort of, I guess, maybe leads on to an update specific about the Who Dares Win series, because you've touched on some of that. And yeah, I agree, like that. Without your conversation with Jared Tuoro, we wouldn't have landed or wouldn't have decided to go down this path. And it's not, so I think people, maybe this might be timely to share it as well. I think people think the Epich Aotearoa Create a Better Future podcast is exclusive to the Who Dares Win series, but it's not. So that's a part of the bigger picture when it comes to Epich Aotearoa Create a Better Future podcast. And that, not tangent, but that, I guess, series that came about due to the connection that I felt when you spoke with Jared and the things that he shared. And I thought, well, there's possibly a space here within a Defence Force setting. And I chose, I think I've mentioned in the other one, I chose to start with the Special Air Service portion of it because of my connection to it. But it branches out into a heck of a lot more than that from a Defence Force setting. So the Epich Aotearoa Create a Better Future podcast will continue in its original format. That will still continue.
Yep.
We just didn't go about, because we were we're still both pretty time poor with families and work and that sort of stuff. But because I guess our skills, they've been slowly progressing, but they weren't at a stage where either of us, I think, felt comfortable enough to develop the video as well as the audio and put it onto both the website and YouTube and the other social platforms and that sort of thing. So we just initially stuck with audio. But now we're sort of getting to the stage where the guests that we're lucky enough to have, who are not necessarily Defence Force, but are more in other sectors and other industries that they participate or that they work in, it's great to now start putting those videos up. And I think the first one was probably Stu, right? And Stu Campbell that you interviewed and put his video up. And I think from what I know anyway, it's a case of having to go back and try to dig out some of those other recordings and then upload those into a separate playlist on the YouTube channel and stuff itself, so that people can maybe connect with those there. Or maybe we look too scruffy and ho-ho, bro, that we just leave those as audio and we just start from now.
I think it was the latter, definitely, bro. It was definitely, I think my hair was like this. Don't worry about it. Just audio.
Yes. Yeah. We're just doing audio. But it was funny, actually, because Bill Bestick, he sent a message. He goes, "Oh, SHIT, I didn't know you were... I didn't realise you were putting the video up as well." He goes, "I probably would have chose a better location." So, yeah, but that was a hard case. Yeah, so, yeah, we're doing videos. Our guests that are lucky enough to come... that we're lucky enough, to have on. We're doing the videos and we're putting those up on YouTube as well as the audio. So just brace yourself for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Get used to seeing these ugly mugs, Aotearoa, because... Oh, gosh. But it actually, it reminded me of a thought, and I'm just curious to hear your input, bro. Is that how have you found your technical skills? Because you raised a really good point. Yeah, we started off with like trying to figure out how to put a podcast together. Now we're doing video.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how have you found the development of those skills for you?
The development has been slow for me, but there's been progress. It's been, slow, incremental progress along the way, I feel like, anyway. So I'm feeling more comfortable and confident with it, but I still get to those moments where I feel like I hit a brick wall and then I've got to take the long road to try to figure it out. Or when I say the long road, sometimes I've just had to delete and start again and then try to get all the way back to where I need to. But that has been good in the sense of helping me reinforce the learning and then identify where I've made a mistake or made a couple of mistakes. And it's helped me or enabled me to potentially not make those same mistakes again. So I definitely feel like it's getting better, bro, but it's still slow way. So it's not where I'd like it to be at this stage, but it can only continue to make progress, I reckon. So that's how I feel. What about you?
Oh yeah, same. But I've been enjoying it because it's like there's a totally new skill. So learning like say Logic or Audacity or something. Those type of tools to be able to figure out how it strings together. I guess the frustrating bit is when you get to a point and trying, like for example, trying to normalize the audio so not one track is louder than the other.
Yes, dominating.
Yeah. So you go on YouTube and you look and you watch and go, 12-minute video. No, I ain't got time for 12 minutes. Give me a 30-second video. Just get to the point. Yeah.
Where's that one piece that I need? It's not going to take 18 minutes. Yeah. I don't want to be in the middle listening to this for 18 minutes. Or I speed up the speed from normal 2 straight to 2. It's like,
that's it.
Yeah.
So things like that. iMovie's my friend when it comes to video.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. So nothing more fancier than that, but at the same time, it's a good learning thing, and I suspect this is the same with you, bro. It's like when we do something, and then we play it back and just check to make sure it works. There, we can actually hear either where it just works well, or the flaws, the slight imperfections, which may not be immediately obvious, perhaps in the podcast itself, but I suspect that we're starting to hear it or see it. Yeah.
And you know what? I part of what I discovered, so it's good that you mentioned this, this technical piece. Part of what I discovered is that when I've been downloading the videos, there's a couple of different parts there where you can download the separate individual ones. And by doing that, you get a better quality of not only the visual and as well as the audio. And I know for a few of the videos, particularly, so I might have to go back. It's probably worthwhile I go back and do like Philip Taulele's as an example. I just downloaded the all combined him and I version. And in that one, the quality is nowhere near as good. So there's some people going, oh man, and I had phone calls from some of the guys serving in the unit and ex-members going, man, I would have really loved to have heard more about what Phil was saying, but it got to the point where it was just too hard to listen to because it was really broken and disjointed. And that's my fault, and partly because I was just being lazy and didn't download the higher quality version because it would have meant more time. I would have needed to put more time in, and I was really running short on time trying to get stuff done. So I'll probably have to go back and revisit that, I reckon. I will. So just to do that justice and respect to Phil for giving time. So that's been one discovery on here on this Riverside thing that we use, that it gives us a couple of different options. So I'm hoping as I go back and then download that higher quality version, it's going to be individual, and then I'm going to have to try to sync those together so I'm not talking over him or vice versa in there, and then re-upload it. So get rid of that other rubbish one and then re-upload the good version so that people can actually hear what he has to say, because he had a lot of good stuff to say.
He was awesome.
I think that was probably one of the longer ones. Yeah, it was about 3 hours, close to 4 hours, and we could have kept going. But so I'll redo that. Maybe I'll break that up into 4 parts, 1 hour each. That'll give 4 weeks. It's then that'll give me a little bit more time. Maybe that's a bloody good idea, I reckon.
There you go.
That could give 4 weeks worth and just spread that out. Yeah, so I'll get on to doing that probably this weekend or next week. So yeah, that'll be good. And then I guess on the back end of that with the technical piece, it's been nice to see some progress on our side. And I just wanted to mention, it was great that you did that. How did that feel for you putting that together? You just did one which went up yesterday.
Yes.
A bit of a refresher. How was that?
That was actually a lot. It was a lot smoother than I thought. The and be able to, the overall process, because now that we've gone through it a few times, it gets a little bit quicker, a little bit smoother, because you know where you're heading to. But it was just fascinating going back and listening to different parts, Harry's part and your part, and then Bill's part, and just stringing that together, and then like from a video perspective, putting those transitions so it just kind of flows through. So from
did you use Bill's, Harry's, and did you say mine?
Yeah, I used yours, bro. You didn't watch it? Oh, dude.
I haven't watched that yet. No, I haven't seen it. Yeah. So I saw there was I don't know if it was a thumbnail or a part when it popped up on my feed, but it was a picture of Bill. So I knew that Bill was in there. And I was like, oh, cool, that's cool. Because you said to me, you said, oh yeah, I plan on grabbing 5-10 minute snippets from maybe 3 of the guests that we've had as part of that series. And I was like, oh yeah, sweet. And I was thinking, well, yeah, you're going to grab Bill's. I knew that. Yeah, Moff's is good. Yeah, I didn't know that you grabbed mine. Okay.
Are you on the tail end, bro? As we fade out into the...
okay, that's all right then. Yeah.
But if you look at it though, it's a really good point, because like if you go to YouTube and you see the views or the views of the different podcasts, definitely those you 3 are in the at least the top 4 or 5, to date. So that's and so that gave me the basis. I could have pulled. That was
probably just my wife and kids just like clicking on it and then going off. And then
wait, got to get Dad up.
Oh, my one.
Click. All right, what are you doing, man? Click faster.
Yeah, get some views, son. Get on your phone. Click on that one. You get on that computer. Click on that one.
Daughter, you got your iPad? Come on.
And give it. Yeah. Create some more accounts. Give some thumbs up. Yeah, put another thumbs up.
Aotearoa, that's how we actually do it.
Get the thumbs up. Get the likes. Yeah, get all those likes in, kids.
Get all those likes.
Yeah. Kids are kidding. They're too busy. The girls are too busy watching TikTok, I think.
Yeah, I think that's our next realm, bro. Is like we'll head into the
TikTok realm. Yeah, I don't know. We'll get any of the fellas wanting to come on if we're going to end up on TikTok, I reckon. But actually, that's a good point. So maybe I'll give a little bit of an update. And I know I've spoken with you about some of the stuff, but a bit of an update about some of the guests. So it's good. Thanks for reminding me. So I'm glad I remembered. You asked me about Des Powell and what was happening with that guy. So the ex-22 SAS guy co-author, or the author / worked with Damien Lewis, co-author of that book Bravo 30. Really great read for anybody that hasn't read it. And I just want to mention and acknowledge Damien Lewis really captured Des's personality in that book. So as I read that book, it was like I was listening to Des, because
Really?
I've been fortunate to work with him in that private sector. I was like, man, this guy has done a fantastic job of capturing the way Des speaks, his sense of humour. It was like, as I was reading the words, and I've never felt that as I've read a book before, but it's like as I was reading that book, Des's book, co-authored with Damien Lewis, is like I was listening and could hear Des word for word as the things as I was reading the pages in the book. So that's a really great skill, I thought, and I just think it's worth mentioning and acknowledging here. So Damien Lewis, well done. It's not surprising. I think 22 SAS over there, I think he seems to have a pretty good reputation because he publishes things and does his research and does it in a non-biased sort of approach, is the impression that I get from people that I've spoken with, and Des being one of those who's spoken pretty highly of him. But back to Des, we did again like the longest comms check I think in the history of doing a comms check test. We caught up twice, and both times we caught up for like over an hour, and it was beautiful, man. It was great to just catch up with him. He's open and honest about it. He's never been like really technical. His son, or one of his sons, takes care of his social media and stuff for him because he's not big in all that stuff. And it was, he was flat out. I remember when I was working with him, he was flat out sending an email, and that was probably one of the successes of his technical skills at that time, which you won't mind because we were having a good laugh about that. But yeah, really good guy, humble guy. And so we did the comms check. Everything worked really well. It was perfect. And then we had a good laugh. And I was like, okay, hang on, we're going to revisit some of this stuff. And we had scheduled for an hour, but we've just spent the last couple of days doing a comms check, gone for well over 2 hours, so we may go longer. He succumbed and then said, okay, listen, hey, you've got me for as long as you need. Let's just do it and see how we go. I was like, great. That day, though, then on the day, comms, everything is good. He got into the studio, no worries. When I hit record, everything started well, but what we didn't test was me hitting record while we were talking on those 2 days of comms checks. And what started to happen was he was saying my camera went off, but I could still see me, and I could see that his camera had gone off, but he could still see himself. And then there was this massive long delay in between while I was talking or asking him a question, and then when he was speaking and coming back. So yeah, it just became untenable, and both him and I blamed the ionosphere on it. You'd always blame the ionosphere especially when you're a SIG working in the unit and trying to get comms back to HQ or wherever you need to get comms to, or trying to receive. And he references the ionosphere, bloody ionosphere, in his book with one of the guys in his patrol. And so we then continued to try to get it to work. So we're about 15 minutes in. We're like, hey, listen, man, this is crap. It must be because we didn't test it hitting record. We just tested it without the record button, or without hitting record. And by hitting record, it must have had a blowout or whatever in the system. So we stopped recording. We then tried Zoom, tried Skype, and neither of those were working. We kept trying to work with Zoom, with Riverside, and we kept going for about another hour. He stayed on, happy to try to work through it, and yeah, gutted. It just so we couldn't use. Well, I wasn't going to use that because so that's why his one hasn't gone up yet, because I had mentioned that it was going ahead a few weeks ago now, and sadly it hasn't. And then just on the back of that, had a chat with him maybe a couple of weeks ago. He's still keen to jump on the podcast, but not until May now. So we're in March, a couple of months away now before we'll get Des on. So hopefully we can sort a few things out between now and then. Maybe you might have to find a different platform. I don't know what it is. Maybe because he's in the UK and I'm over here, or whatever. But It seems to be working fine when we're using the same platform and I do the other podcast and I'm speaking with guests in America and in the UK, Scotland and alike. But for whatever reason, it didn't work. So that's the update on Des. It will come. It's just a bit slow going because of the bloody ionosphere and things happening at the moment. Yeah, the signalmen and the bears and all that sort of stuff. The sneaky guys will know what I'm talking about and probably have a laugh, and so will the Defence Force personnel and that as well. What else is there? So that was him. Willie was the other one that you asked me about. So Willie Apiata VC. So I had a good chat with him. I think it's been about 3 weeks now since I caught up with him and had that opportunity to spend some time with him out on his property and with the horses. And just talking. We didn't do any riding that day because he had the vet coming out to give them their tetanus shots and all that sort of stuff on the horses. But we had a good catch up, and that was when he said he'd like to do a podcast with us.
Nice.
On the Epich Aotearoa podcast. So we'll see how that goes. He's in the middle of moving house, so moving further away from where he is now. So right now he's probably literally about 10 minutes down the road from where I am. But he's going to be moving a few hours away. And so when that time happens, once he gets there and gets settled in and all the stuff that he'll need to do first, he'll give me a shout in terms of when it's time to do the podcast, and then I'll jump in my waka and make my way over there, and then and then hang out there and enjoy that time and delve into the things that he wants to speak about. He's got a whole bunch of stuff, man, that he's got going on, and I won't touch on it here because it'll be better coming from him and him speaking about those things and what he wants to share. So, so there's that. And then we're just carrying on reaching out to other guests that aren't necessarily Defence Force members, some that are Defence Force members and ex-Defence Force personnel, and some that are ex-NZ and Australian SF. So still working that route and reaching out. I've seen in some of our comments and messages that we get want to have more NZSAS or ex-NZSAS guests on the show. And I think I've touched on it before with you. Like, we can only invite them, right? So it's up to them as to whether or not they want to come. And some of them for various reasons and good reasons, for their own personal reasons, don't want to and will probably never, and that's 100% fine. So there are some guests in the pipeline that have verbally said yes. So we're just being patient and working through those, and we just carry on getting some more practice in with other guests as we need to as well, that might be willing to come on, and we keep looking to punch above our weight and invite all sorts of people. I probably won't name them here then, because they'll be like, cheek of these two, think that they can just invite these people onto their little hoary podcast. So maybe we should have just called it Two Māori Boys podcast and see. Thinking, shooting the breeze, chewing the fat. Two random fellas.
It's a good point,
so that's that.
Yeah, it's a good point, bro, because it's like, a lot of it is, there's a lot of, and it's probably what people don't see or don't hear, is that there's a lot of connection work going behind the scenes. And sometimes, while we'd like to have all these people lined up in advance, and I think that was one of our original thoughts when we first started was, we're going to put in the bank 10 podcasts. We'll bank those, and so that we've got this
and then
then we'll go.
Nah,
but then we went,
we just
we just go for
Let's just do it.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did. I'm glad we didn't wait. We just did it, and because we learned a lot quicker. But it's interesting that you say that. It's like the whole who dares wins. It's funny as I'm reading a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but I look at the LinkedIn. I looked at places like newspapers and stuff, and I see stories or perhaps individuals saying something or doing something, and if that connects, boom, connect with them, and then send a message. It's like and to see what comes back. And sometimes you're right, bro. Sometimes it's kind of cheeky, You say, this person doesn't know me. They're high profile. What the heck? Send it off. See what happens.
Contact them. They can only say no, or they can just ignore it. So, Yeah, we get a few of those, eh? We've had a few of those, and that's
yep.
fine. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother us. And I think you mentioned a really great point. We're learning through doing. So we're looking stuff up. We're still researching. We're building connections as and where we can. Some connections don't come through because, rightly so, people will just be like, who's this random spam person contacting me? And that's fine. But what it does is it causes us to think and find ways through, which I think leads me on to what I wanted to ask you about briefly as well. Maybe touch on it in your line of work. It seems to be with all the testing, as much as you, from what I can gather, go about trying to find faults and problems or errors and stuff in particular systems or processes, it also seems as much equally important about trying to find solutions and finding ways to problem solve, to, okay, this didn't work, but how can we incorporate or do something to make it work? And that's what I've felt when we've reached out to people and trying to network and or connect with people that we'd like to have on as guests, when either we're ignored or when either they say they can't or they're unable to or whatever, because there's plenty of those as well. It's interesting how it doesn't deter us. It just continues to drive us to want to try to find a way. And I very rarely, because you never served in the Defence Force, but I very rarely have come across that in my time anyway, working in a number of different industries with civilians, if that makes sense. There's usually been, and even recently where I was working before, there was just quite a number of people that were just, we can't do it, and that's it. Whereas being surrounded by people that are solutions focused or have a solutions focused mindset of wanting to try to find a way, I don't know, there's just something really positive and uplifting about it for me, because it's like, well, yeah, I know that this person's going to keep trying to find a way. And that's, for me, that's where you fit into the picture really well with that mindset and approach that you have. What have been your thoughts? Is that right with some of the stuff that you do in your line of work in that testing space and agile space and small teams and finding solutions and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because there's a lot of parallels, a lot of crossover. The immediate thought is that well, you're my bro, so I don't want to let you down. That's my immediate thought. Right? So we're in this together. So if some high profile or some person I've reached out to says no, then my thought is, okay, well, cool, thank you, next. And then I'm still I'm still searching, because if I don't, then I feel like I've dropped the ball, and I don't want to do that, because I feel like the whole is more important than just these individual parts. This is not my part, and this is not your part, but it's our part. So I want to play my role in that. And so I guess the going back to, like you're saying, the working in teams and the agile, and this is the stuff that I do. Yeah, it's looking for those ways around things, or getting the information enough so that I can make a decision to go do this or pivot that way or do that tactically, so that you don't feel like it's just one-sided sort of thing, if that makes sense. It is hopefully a more of an equal contribution to this, so that people that are listening to our podcast and can see that we're trying as hard as we can to espouse what we believe in when we talk about creating a better future. And so I guess a lot of it too, to be honest, bro, is the things you've talked about and things you've shared. That influence has actually rubbed off, and I've picked up on it as well, and it's just naturally occurred and incorporated into what we do. So a lot of this podcast stuff I actually talk about in training. I talk about it. Sometimes sometimes I push the marketing plug and say, hey, if you want to hear a really good podcast, go to Why not? It's not going to get the kids to hit all the like buttons. They can only hit it once, though, with their account. Yeah. So that's why we got like 1,000 accounts. Boom, boom.
Imagine that. That's way too much work. I'm struggling with trying to manage the YouTube. Well, we both co-manage the YouTube account for this one, my own channel with the burpees and the torture of the kids, the Zero Alpha one, and the Move Sweat Suffer podcast. So there's enough accounts I've got going on. I don't need any other ones to try to. If I could do that, I probably would. But no, definitely don't have any time. I don't find that I have the time to do that. But yeah, I love how you're plugging it at work. So yes, keep that up. That's very good. And hopefully, maybe you include it in part of the course. So somehow work that they've. Yeah, we're just going to go onto YouTube. I want you to type in Epich Aotearoa Create a Better Future. Now, whilst you're there, so use your account. Just hit that like button, and now you see the subscribe button. Yeah, now hit that. Okay, now let's just log out and let's. Yeah. So that could be one way tactic. You could use that and see who falls for it. But
I gotta mention that'd be funny. That'd be cracking. I might try that.
Just do it as a test. You're a software tester. You like to do it. Let's just do it as an experiment. See how it goes. An experiment. But what else is there? Been diverting. Epich Aotearoa, the podcast itself. Yeah, go.
Yeah. So you mentioned there like Epich Aotearoa, but you're also got your Move Sweat Suffer, which is just a great name for the Burpee podcast. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
Zero Alpha, because I remember asking you what Zero Alpha stands for, but maybe this is a great, perhaps if you want to, a chance or opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah. Actually, I can do that. A plug for Zero Alpha. How's that?
A plug.
No, but that's been awesome. So Zero Alpha. I use that term because in my mindset and coming through the Defence Force, it was a trusted point of reference. So you call Zero Alpha when you are sharing information, giving information, reporting back intelligence, and or receiving information to help you execute your task, or maybe you get new instructions to change tact or whatever. And so that was the initial thought behind the name for me and my reasons for it. I was like, yeah, I like that. So, and I thought, well, I want to be and have Zero Alpha as the company be a trusted point of reference for what it is that we're wanting to do. So those special operations or special forces inspired ultra endurance events. And that's the intent behind it, whereby it's just at this stage, it's just a 24-hour offering and a 40-hour offering. So two separate events which run, and and people that might want to test themselves, whether they're just challenge seekers, whether they're ultra marathon runners or Iron men or women, or whether they're professional athletes, whatever the case might be. Here is an event that is going to test you physically, mentally, emotionally, practically, and you're going to come out the other end of that finding out and discovering a bit more about yourself in terms of what you're capable of, what you're willing to do and or willing to not to do, and also what you're not capable of. So we don't anticipate that everybody will complete it or will complete the events. We don't anticipate that everybody will meet all the requirements in order to be deemed either validated or sanctioned in relation to the two separate events themselves. So, or like an official pass. So there can still be people that will probably complete it, but may not have successfully met the requirements in terms of some of the timed events and that sort of thing, or timed activities, I should say, within the event themselves. So that's the purpose of that. And the beauty about that, or this particular company, the Zero Alpha company, is that we're in no rush. Like it just sits there. The website is there. I'll update it. We'll announce the upcoming events. So the first event was actually supposed to start today, but we didn't run it because we didn't hit the minimum numbers. So the website's pretty black and white, and it might seem quite blunt, and to a point to some people it might seem quite rude. But I mean, it's not intended to be rude or disrespectful. It's just meant to be transparent and honest. And so, hey, this is what we're about. This is what you can expect. And if that sounds like a bit of you, then hey, apply. And as it turned out, we've had 17 what seem to be proper applicants, because we've had a number of we've had a number of people that have put in fake details in that as well, and so those things have bounced back. So it's probably just, I'd do the same. It may be people just trying to, suss out, well, how does this work? So they've done step 1 and step 2, and then didn't do step 3, which is the payment piece. And then when I've sent out follow-up emails to people, initially I did it individually as they came in, and then those things bounced back, and I was like, there's blanking spammers, people blanking mucking around. But of the 17 that we had, only 4 of those had actually completed the 3 steps. So it just shows, I guess, for me, that there is people out there. I'm probably just not pitching it as well as what I could. Maybe I should see somebody that deals in marketing or promotion or advertising or whatever, but I'm not. I'm just happy. Like I said, I'm not in any rush. It's just sitting there off to the side. And if people resonate with it, then they'll contact or connect like these people have. Then I was supposed to send out an update, but I'll do that later on. I'll put it on the website. And then there's others that, which has been a really good learning point for myself and for Todd primarily. So Todd Bowler, who you and I interviewed on the podcast, who's over in Perth. What he suggested and what the feedback that we got from some of those 17 that hadn't done step 3, that hadn't paid, they said, we're actually looking at doing the June one. So, and we've got 2 in June. We've got the 24-hour one, and then we've got the Devastation one. So we've got Mayhem and Devastation, which is the 40-hour one, running in June on obviously 2 separate weekends. And what they mentioned was they felt that it would give them time to train and prepare for that. So they didn't think that they'd need to pay now and do step 3 because, they're looking ahead down the track. And then when I spoke with Todd, he said it's actually a good point, because when people are preparing for some of their ultra marathon events, like whether it's a 50 clicker or 100 clicker or whatever, or 100 miler, a lot of those people, even just a regular marathon, people will generally train, 3 to 6 months in advance. In a lot of cases, maybe not in all cases, but they'll want to train and prepare to get ready for that event so that they can be peaking or be, at their most capable or most prepared to be able to perform as well as they can. And I thought, man, that makes sense, because I was like, bro, I'm doing this. He's like, that's great. Yeah, let's do it. And I said, he goes, when you run in the first one? And we're in February. And I said, I'm going to run it in March. And he was like, oh, March, that, like, you don't want to do it a bit further down? I was like, no, I want to run them each month. And then, maybe run the 40-hour one sort of every quarter, or 4, 5 months, 6 months, maybe 2 a year or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay. And then it wasn't until we had the conversation a week or almost 2 weeks ago where he spoke about that. So, yeah, I mean, without going on too long about that, that's sort of what it is in a nutshell, and some of the pivoting points that will be happening with regards to it. So rather than doing that, because we don't need to have one running every month, we just pivot that and then announce them, give people a lot of lead up time, and enable them to be able to train and prepare for it. And on the back of that, which we're probably going to do as well, which I don't care about mentioning here, is run some group sessions, PT sessions, sort of in line with the sort of expectations or possible requirements that might be required on those events, and run those for free. Get some people that might be interested, that want to prepare for participating in those events. They'd have to pay to do the events if they want to actually participate in doing those proper, but run some basic outdoor fitness session classes or groups, whatever you want to call it, but more in line with some of the activities that might be required, or that they might be able, that they might anticipate on the events themselves. Burpees will no doubt make an appearance. It has to. But there'll be a bunch. But there'll be a bunch of other stuff in that as well. So that's in the planning in that as well. So that's been cool. Yeah. So Zero Alpha, I love it. In terms of what's been happening, there's been a lot of traffic through the site. There's been quite a lot of interest in it, and there's been quite a lot of, I guess, people just spamming it as well with regards to with details, and that's cool too. Like it's getting eyes on, and people are having a look at it and are interested. And I just think, there's a place for it. There's a place for it within this ultra endurance events that happen, like the Coast to Coast, the Ring of Fire, Spartan races, Tough Mudder events, and a whole bunch of other things that that people like to participate in. Will it be for everybody? No, it won't. But it's not. We're not trying to draw in everybody, and we're not going to have big, massive events with, hundreds of people. The maximum that we'll ever have on either event is 20, and there's a reason for that, because we feel that those smaller groups and numbers, you can give more of yourself to those individuals, and they will get more benefit and reward out of being involved in a smaller group. And as those groups already start small, they are probably going to dwindle to an even smaller group, and thereby you can add even more, hopefully, value to those individuals that have been willing and prepared to go a little further. So, yeah, did that give you that gives you a bit of an explanation, eh?
Yeah,
it's a long one, eh? Put you to sleep.
I think it's great. I think it's just such a great initiative. It's mostly because, well, from my perspective as a civilian, all right, sitting on the periphery of what you guys have done, there's a type of mystique, a reverence. I think Todd, he talked about it in his podcast. He talked about reverence for the SF world. Even though he was a what was he? He was a TAG officer, wasn't he?
Tactical Response Group. Yeah, high level.
Oh, TRG, not TAG. Yeah,
TRG. Yeah.
TRG. Yeah. So, but which if you look at now, you see a lot a flow on with these reality shows, like here in Australia, the SAS Australia, and they also have that in the UK as well. So I think it's the same people that run it.
Probably, yeah.
The DS, and so. There's no wonder that people want to connect with that, because they want to see, they want to challenge themselves. And we've heard this, like you talked about it in your podcast when your mindset with getting through, say, the first selection in NZSAS, right? And then how that compared with the SASR, and then going through that selection, and how your mindset is to be able to take this challenge head on, and just one foot at a time, and like Bill talked about, one step, and incorporate that mindset. And I suspect there's a whole bunch of people out there that want to challenge themselves in different ways. So I think that is actually tremendous opportunity for those people to come together. Also, and this is a shout out to sports teams as well. If you want to connect with Joe, he'll be able to take you through something that you won't expect. I guarantee it. Burpees included.
Yeah, burpees all included. Yeah, all inclusive, an all inclusive.
Yeah,
package.
all inclusive. That's it.
Yeah, no, but it's been really cool. And so that little side project has been awesome to just sink my teeth into, to go all in on. I haven't done a lot on the YouTube channel for it, purely because there's just a few little short videos and whatever on there. But I think. I feel like anyway, and Todd and Bill feel the same. The traction and the traction for it will build once we get the first event under our belt. And whenever that first event happens, it happens. We're not too fussed about that. And actually, if anything, to be absolutely honest, I'm quite pleased that the first event didn't start and happen today, because I feel like this weekend has been one of the first weekends where I've been able to have a little bit of time to myself, because it's just been flat out in the technical side of things, on organising and doing interviews and other aspects, learning and studying a whole bunch of other stuff to try to get ahead. And it's been really nice having the kids here, making sure I spend time with them, not just with the burpees, but having our big girl here and that as well. It's,
nice.
It's awesome. So on top of that, the stuff with the ebooks and that sort of thing. And actually, I might just mention on there, because you did ask me about it, but I'm actually thinking. So I've done the first 2. I've written another 3, which are probably around about the same number of pages as the second ebook that's out. But I don't think I'll put those out like I have the first 2, because what I've been finding and what I felt to do instead was use my channel on YouTube and just talk to some of those points. So I did a physical preparation one, and that came about because after the first 2 ebooks, there's a whole bunch of emails that came through and asking specifically about physical preparation. And funnily enough, I had written one, not so much a training program, not a periodized training program for it, but just sort of key things to target and to make sure that you worked on. And I felt, oh, far out. Why don't I just, because it saves, there's a bit of a benefit to it. One, it saves me from having to proofread everything and go through and spell check and do all of this and then find photos and all that sort of thing, which takes a lot of time for me, but is really enjoyable for that, just to go through that process. But it's a lot easier to just speak about it, and I can and and I can try to gather my thoughts and then spit it out of my mouth once I remember. And that was I enjoyed that a lot more, and it felt great for me personally. Even though, don't get me wrong, it feels great to see that. It was like, wow, people are actually buying this little Hori's 2 little ebooks, and that's been awesome. But you know what, like in terms of from a paying it forward perspective, for me it just felt awesome to speak to the video or to the camera a bit more and share some of those things that I found people really need to focus on to help them prepare if they're going to do either one of those selections. I don't want to just put it down as SAS in general, because I have no idea what the UK one is like because I haven't done it. I've heard of what it's like from other people that have done it, but unless I've done it, I don't feel any right or it doesn't feel right to speak about what they should do for that. So the New Zealand one, Australian one, I've done those 2. So this is what I reckon, and based on my experience and what helped me, I'm sure that it will help others if they choose to use that. At the same time, there's a whole bunch of other advice and stuff out there too from people that have done it and gone about it in different ways to me. So more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. So the ebook, the writing side of things, I'm still doing just because I've been enjoying that. It's helped reconnect my mind with a bunch of other cool things that I had forgotten during my time there, and just in the Defence Force in general, and individuals as well that have played a significant part. And then speaking to it on the video just seems like a nice way for me anyway to just give it, because YouTube is free. You can just whack it up there, and then if somebody bumbles across it and if it happens to help them, then I reckon that's a good thing. So yeah, I've been enjoying that process, even though there's been people like you that have encouraged me that I should write,
yes,
which I appreciate, and it's been nice, but I've definitely always put those off and then done a couple. I'll probably leave those 2 where they are, and so I probably won't publish the other, or publish, I probably won't put up the other ones through the link, and I'll just talk about the stuff instead on the YouTube channel, and if people want to take the time to listen, and if it helps, great. And it seems like it's been helping a few people, because some of them have gotten back straight away on the email and expressed some gratitude with regards to the physical stuff and answering their questions, because there was a whole bunch of them that specifically came in all around the same time asking about physical preparation. I'm doing this, what about this, what about that? And I thought, man, this is just going to be way easier for me to just get everybody in the one, and I can just give it to them in terms of based on my experience. So that's been a cool little exercise, bro.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I guess the also the I'm sure you've got it in your book. The key skill if you're a Kiwi moving to Australia to go with SASR is to learn the Australian national anthem.
Actually, I didn't write that in there. See, yeah, I should have, and maybe I should have. If I had have remembered that, if I had have thought to put that in there, I would have written out both verses. Here you go, you fellas, learn this, because you're going to have to sing both verses.
Perfectly, word perfect,
depending on which staff you get. But that's, oh man, yeah. So see, there's good memories there just in and of itself. But one of the things that I put up recently was about struggles and transition, and I spoke a bit about, man, I went for like an hour, which isn't unusual for me, but anyway, that was cool speaking about that, because there's things in there wrapped up in that piece that even I didn't realise until much further down the track. So when Bill was speaking in the podcast and in the service of others, who dares wins, about saying, I reckon you need a year out for every year that you've been in, sort of thing. It wasn't until he said that I really understood what he meant, because my struggles with transitioning out and connections with people and becoming frustrated and bored in certain jobs, or in most jobs actually outside of the unit, I didn't realise that was probably attributed to my time in the Defence Force and just being surrounded by people that were just constantly pushing me to try to get better. And it was one of those light bulb moments. And so speaking to a lot of struggles that I had in transition, I didn't actually realise that they were as significant as they were until years down the track. And probably, dare I say, even more recently, thinking back on those things, but being in an awesome space now and just loving what I'm doing and loving the fact that it's helping some people, the next lot that are preparing. So there's a couple of fellas that I'm helping at the moment with their training, that they're training and preparing for the NZ selection. And then there's a couple over in Australia that are preparing for the one there, which I've just been having some comms and interaction with and trying to answer their questions and that sort of thing as well as I can. But the beauty about that for me is that they keep coming back, but they're finding it valuable and useful, which is cool to know and to hear. And I guess it's a testament to the units themselves that the selection processes really haven't changed a heck of a lot, if at all, since I did them over 20 years ago. And people might go, well, what relevance does that have? You did it 20 years ago. It's like you need something more up to date. And that may be the case. I'm sure that there's probably some tweaks here and there, but overall the essence and the process and stuff involved, it really hasn't changed. So speaking with guys that are still serving and that are helping out, and there was just a selection that just happened here in NZ not that long ago, the process is pretty much the same. And it's because it works, because it's proven, it's tried, it's tested, it works. So why would you change it? And I just think it's great to be able to give back in a way without going into all the details, because you've got to have that uncertainty and not knowing everything that's going to happen or play out day by day, step by step, because that keeps you on edge, I feel. And it just made it, to a degree, it made it more exciting for me, like being so young and just being in there, it really did make it more exciting. It was challenging enough, so I wouldn't dare say that it made it more challenging. It just, for whatever reason, I was excited about it, because I knew bits and pieces, but I knew that there was a heck of a lot that I wasn't going to know, and that's how it should be. So there's no breakdowns of the days or the nights of what happens on either of the New Zealand or the Australian one, and for good reason. When people go on there, if you've prepared enough mentally and physically before you get on there, then you're going to be, you're going to have an advantage, I reckon, once you step on there, if you've done those two things, the mental and the physical preparation beforehand. So it's cool to be able to give back in some small way.
Because why not? Why wouldn't we want the people that are willing to give this a crack in NZ and Australia, and dare I say it, any SF unit around the world, they have a similar type of selection. Why not get them to be the better or best prepared they could be? Doesn't mean they're going to make it, right? And doesn't mean that you give them all the information like you're saying, because they still need to be able to struggle, so that they can go through that. Even if you did, we're breaking down every single day, it still wouldn't, to some extent it would help them, but it wouldn't help them. You know what I mean?
100%.
Because just the experiences that we've picked up, or I've picked up personally from your podcast, Chris, Kane, Bill, Harry, Nick, all Gads, all these different podcasts from different form operators, and just hearing them talk about just how challenging that was, but their mindset around it. And I guess that's what you're after, right? In the SF world is that knowing that you're most likely physically prepared, but this part here, the top 2 inches,
as Kane would say,
yeah.
And that's a great point, actually, because Kane spoke about some really great stuff there, and he went through, not everybody is prepared, like he mentioned, I think he touched on, he just wasn't prepared or didn't prepare well enough the first time through, but he was absolutely prepared the second time through. He smashed it. And And sometimes it's not even a case of not being prepared. Like one of my mates, Aaron, that I mentioned in the first podcast, the one that Bill spoke about. Are you done? I'm Pohatu staff. So yeah, we had a guy named with the surname of Dunn, and then Aaron Pohatu, his surname. And I would have been on that same DEMS course because it was during cycle, but I obviously wasn't there and didn't hear that when the staff was there. Are you done? So no, I'm Pohatu staff. Man, I wish I had been there to hear that. I would have just been cracking up. Actually, I would have been trying to hide my laughter because I wouldn't have wanted to get in trouble from the staff, just because of the amount of fear they instilled into us even during cycle. But lost my train of thought now where I was going with. I got distracted. Oh, Kane, when he was speaking about his preparation, and he just wasn't prepared that first time. And I was coming back to Aaron. Here's a guy that I mentioned. He was prepared, but he was the guy that planted the seed in my head, and thankfully so. Early, and he's basically said just my legs weren't strong enough. And I was like, bloody hell, that's what triggered the thought in my head. Are my legs strong enough? It's like, gee, I don't know. So I better get to work on them, and thankfully I did. But the payoff and benefit for me was that not only did my legs get stronger, but my shoulders and back got stronger for being able to carry the weight that I thought I was going to be needing to carry. And as it turned out, my pack felt really light, or wouldn't say really light, but it definitely felt light.
Bearable.
And it, at some stages, particularly before we were about to get it weighed, I was thinking, bloody hell, they're going to weigh my pack and they're going to say it's too light. But my pack weighed the same as everybody else's, and it was on where it needed to be. But to me,
what's the weight?
Sorry, bro? I'm pretty sure the weight, from what I remember, must have been either between 25 or 35 kilos in the pack.
Okay.
And then your webbing and then your rifle. So maybe all up, so the pack might have been 25, and then with everything else, maybe 35. Can't remember exactly. I think I replied to that in a message to one of the people. That was for the New Zealand one, and I'm pretty sure the Australian one was probably pretty similar. But for whatever reason, bro, I had in my head when I was training, when I was speaking with one of the guys, because there's times when I was doing the step-ups, I'd need to be lifted off the ground in the barracks, in the corridor, because I couldn't get up. Like, I'd sit down, put my pack on, do the straps, tighten it up, but I literally couldn't get to my feet. Once I was on my feet, I was okay, but I couldn't get off the ground. And I remember one time weighing my pack, and it was near on close to 80 kilos, my pack. And so I was doing step-ups with that, and man, bro, it hurt, but I'm so glad I did it, because those times when I then got on the New Zealand one, the Australian one, and I was not the smartest because I still did the same when I went to Australia. So I knew that my pack was not going to be as heavy as what it would be on selection. So why would you train with a pack that heavy? So I wouldn't recommend it, but it worked for me. But I repeated the same thing. I thought, well, if it worked in NZ, I'm going to do this here. I got through that barrier testing, whereby I blinked and realised, because I only just passed the 3.2, I only just did enough kilometres in the navigation phase before I really seized up and got massive cramp and I couldn't move anymore. But thankfully I'd covered enough kilometres to be able to be deemed acceptable or approved to go onto the SASR selection. But by the time I got on there, I was switched on. I was having salts and everything on my meals, and I never cramped up once. And the heat was fine. Like, it didn't bother me. I just kept my fluids up and I'd acclimatized to the heat. So, but what I did do was I kept the same training when I went over to Australia, and I still kept the same heavy pack and did my step-ups. Well, actually, the barracks that I was in, they had these nice stairs. So I lived up on the second or third story. And so I'd just start from the bottom, go all the way up, come back down, go all the way up. If I got sick and tired of that, then I still had my trunk, which just outside my barracks room on the balcony, and I'd just step up on those. But same thing, I went on the Australian one and my pack felt light. And I just thought to myself, like, A, I was grateful, but B, I thought, man, I was stupid. Like, why? You didn't need to train with that heavy, with your pack that heavy. But as I think about that, would I do it again if I was going to go onto the UK one? You know what? I probably would have. I would have done the same training method, and I would have had the same heavy weight in the pack. knowing that the trade-off was going to be my pack is going to be way lighter when I get on selection. So therefore I already had a mental advantage, was the way I viewed it. And the only other difference then doing the Australian one was I knew I could put up with a lot of crap. I knew that I could struggle through sleep deprivation, being starving and hungry, being weak and being under pressure. I knew that the only thing that I needed to do was I just needed to be willing to do it again. And and thankfully I was. So I was willing to do it again. And that's what saw me through. That the physical attributes of having stronger legs and shoulders and back capable of bearing the weight was just an added bonus at the end of the day, because mentally it was still, and the whole thing was still tough, physically, mentally, emotionally, all that sort of stuff. But having those experiences from NZ and having those experiences through the training that I had put in prior to just gave me more in reserve. I felt gave me an advantage across, compared to others that were on that course that maybe didn't have the same experience or hadn't done the same training or whatever. So the same boring, monotonous training. So So
that's awesome, because there's a couple of things that jump out, and one of them is I vividly recall like in sports and stuff like that, you train harder than you play. Like so you train harder, so when it comes to the game is a lot easier. I'm not saying that selection's a game, but the concept is similar. Yeah. But also the discipline about putting the yards in, and I guess part of this is the whole series and what we're trying to do is for those that are looking to go down that particular route to become an operator or head towards becoming an operator in some sense. Yeah. Is that you've got to put in the yards, no matter how monotonous it might be, and which is true with anything. Yeah, I guess.
And that's the same with this podcast. It can be pretty. It can be pretty monotonous in terms of. I don't find it monotonous in terms of the conversations that we have with either yourself or with our guests, but monotonous in the sense of, man, it's a bit of a grind. Like you sort of touched on, people don't know about the back end stuff that we work on to try to connect and engage with people, to invite them on. And, when you don't get the replies, or when you do get a reply and it's not the reply that you're hoping for, that can, I guess for some people it could be disheartening. And but I love, how we feed off each other, particularly, and you just reminded me of it when you said, it's no, okay, next person. All right, next person. Because there's plenty of people out there, and some, it's just a matter of time and the doing the numbers. Eventually there's going to be people that are going to say yes, and it might take us a long time to get to that point, which can seem monotonous to the point that you mentioned or that we've discussed so far, but it's just a matter of time, and we just keep persisting and working through it until such time as we connect with those people. And then as we find one and then two and then more, it starts to build out into more and more people slowly start to agree, which is great. And even as I think back and look back now, I look at our list and on our website, and I just go back and review the guests that we've had on so far, and I just think, far out, there's quite a number of people that we've had on, which is amazing to me because of the messages and the stories that they have, the lived experiences that they've shared, and the way that it's impacted both you and I, but also other people that have been kind enough to send through the messages. So we'll keep going with the monotonous, boring stuff. It's a good thing, I reckon. There's benefits.
It is a good thing. Yeah, there is, and it just sets us up for the future, but it also means that we get to learn, but it also means that we provide, hopefully, a better, richer experience for our listeners, which is ultimately what we're after here. Yeah,
definitely.
Hey, bro, you just actually reminded a thought just jumped in my head, and I hope you don't mind me asking this, because so you're in NZ, right? And you're doing you're doing selection cycle, but NZ is NZ. Other than a feral pig that I can think of, there ain't a lot of much out. Oh, except for the weather, maybe orcs. All right, there's not much in these
the orcs. The
orcs. There's not much else out there in bushland or wherever where that can respectfully, they could derail you. But you go to Oz, how did you put up with like snakes and all the multitude of various things here in Oz that would just want to kill you?
Yeah, actually, well, I think there's a few things in here. That's a good question. One, the unit itself from selection and cycle, we're not. Well, during my time, maybe they've changed it now, but I doubt it. But during my time on selection and cycle, we weren't doing selection or courses in crocodile-infested waters, put it that way. So that's one bonus.
That's one.
Yeah, so that's they're very, health and safety was there, obviously up here for them, and the planning and stuff that they have around there. Yeah, we're not around those sort of places. Snakes and stuff you can't really control, like they'll be everywhere. But to be fair, like in my case, on selection, I never came across any snakes. I probably came across more snakes in the Holsworthy Barracks military camp in Sydney there, in the sort of periphery of the training ground. I came across more red belly black snakes there, just through when we're doing tasks or doing runs through the track and on the bush, and then you'd see one on the track and sort of slither off. Then I never came across any on the Australian selection. So, definitely being cautious of it. But I suppose after being there for a while and being in Australia, you sort of became accustomed to it. Plus, whenever we did exercises over in Australia, there was always like a wildlife brief by experts that would come in and give you the things on funnel webs and redbacks and brown snakes, red belly black snakes, death adders, and all that sort of stuff. And just and the bull ants, the inch ants, and all that sort of stuff. So they've got all those things, over there. So whereas here, like maybe the old possum, trying to rustle in and sneak into my pack to get my ration pack out of there. I remember those sounds during battalion, and you're bloody trying to kick them away. But other than a possum trying to get into my pack and get at the ration pack, there's not
the
much
two
else.
glowing eyes at night time.
But no, Australia was good. March flies were a bit of a bugger when I did selection. The flies that just let and they bite, or it's like, oh man, those things are blinking annoying. But no, it was pretty good, man, to be honest. Didn't mentally, I was fine. I'd watch, I'd be watching my footing, especially when you got into the close country aspects of the navigation phase, because, well, for me, just, wanting to be mindful that I didn't step on a snake or get bitten. But also at the same time understanding that I've got kilometres that I need to make, and I've got distances that I need to cover, and I've got checkpoints that I need to get to. So it was sort of there, but in the background. It wasn't forefront of my mind, if that makes sense. And I think that's probably the same for most of the guys on there. Probably particularly everybody else was Australian on there, so they were probably just used to it. Like guys that were there that come from Townsville, which gets very hot and humid. Guys are up in Cairns and Brisbane and all those sort of places, so they were more than used to all of that sort of stuff. And if they weren't too worried and fussed about it, which was the impression that I got, well, then I just felt, for me, it's like, well, I've got a job to do. I'll just carry on with the rest of it. So so that was probably a good thing in that sense.
Did that again? Sorry,
no, you're right.
Because it's interesting, because it's like, I can imagine, like, you just say you're operational, you're in country, and you have, let's just say you're on a intel gathering task mission. You say you set up your OP and stuff, and yet you still have wildlife coming through, perhaps. So it's like, because in my head, it's like, well, I'm not going to pull out a can of Raid because and squirt some spiders or whatever away because I'm busy doing what I need to do. So you must really have to work this thing, especially if you have some sort of fear or of fauna.
I think it's probably fair. I mean, I'm thankful. I don't know how I would react if a snake came blinking slithering right up in my OP and I come face to face with a brown snake or something like that. I can tell you what, I'm more than likely probably not going to sit still because I don't want to get bitten. Would I scream? I don't know, because I haven't been faced with it. I like to think I wouldn't. I'd be like,
That's right. Yeah.
no screaming here. It's so who knows? But yeah, I mean, little things like you have little inch ants and stuff come along. You even have some of the redback spiders been bitten by a few of those, but other than being quite painful or sharp pain at the start and then a bit of redness and swelling, then becoming itchy, at least for me anyway. Yeah, I didn't think too much of those. I thought, it's a spider, which is probably not the smartest when you think of a funnel web spider as an example, and that I would probably just end up kaput. So maybe it helped being not too smart, like in my case. But I don't know of, and you raise an interesting point. I haven't asked any of the guys. I never asked any of the guys if anybody came across or had any wildlife or whatever reptiles come through their OP whilst they're there trying to be sneaky quiet, or you're just a few meters away from a potential target or whatever. And thankfully that didn't happen. I would probably imagine, those wildlife reptiles, that sort of stuff, if you're that close to a target or and you've got people and stuff around, they tend to want to move away from those sort of built up areas. Don't get me wrong, you get snakes and stuff that'll come into suburban areas and hide in people's shoes and under their mats and all that sort of stuff. But I think for the most part, their tendency is to stay away from those high traffic areas of blinking the orcs moving around in the places where they are. So that's probably added to why I never came across or had any of those experiences, which is great. I'm glad that we didn't have those, because you got enough stuff to worry about without having to worry about wildlife that could come up and kill you or cause you to die of biting you, and if you don't get treated sooner rather than later. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's because that mentality of I wouldn't say fearless. Fearless is not the right word, but being able to harness that potential fear, I suppose, and to be able to make sure that you've got control of it in a sense that you can manage it,
Yeah.
Knowing that there are things there. Yeah.
I think that's a good point. But I also think, when you're given a task, the guys are very mission orientated and very mission focused. And so that becomes the primary objective. You are you are still considering your surroundings. You are still considering your environment, but you're very much aware and looking out for actual threats of the two-legged kind, depending on the task that you are engaged or assigned to go and do. So, so that sort of thing. But you're still going to pay attention to your environment and that sort of stuff. You don't want to be lying on a nest of inch ants, as an example. That's not a good idea. You don't want to go and lie down on a blanking brown snake who's trying to have a crash underneath some leaves and that sort of thing. So you do think about those sorts of things, but it's not the highest priority, if that makes sense at that time. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. Oh, thank you for sharing that, bro. Because it's like it's only until you started talking that I realised that New Zealand and Australia are obviously different. Yeah. But in terms of how, but they're different in different challenging ways. So it's interesting to hear your experience on that. That was cool.
Definitely, bro. And that's a great point. Different and very interesting and challenging ways. I mean, the heat goes without saying. People could probably pick that straight off the bat. But if you sweat a lot like me, one of the things that I never considered, because I've never been one, even from a young age, I would never add salt or any extra salt to my food, because I'd never experienced the cramps or that sort of thing. Yeah, maybe a small cramp every now and then, but very, very rarely. And what I noticed on the Australian one was, people, when we were getting fed on the barrier testing, people were putting salt and stuff on their food. I was just like, I didn't think anything of it, because I'd seen plenty of people put salt on their food before. But then when we finished some of those activities, and particularly the 3.2, I was drenched, like the 3.2 run with your full uniform on, boots, webbing, rifle. Everything was soaked. And then when it dried out, you know how you get that white salt thing on your clothing? Yep. Well, I had heaps of that, but I still didn't think anything of it. We got to have something to eat, and I didn't add any salt. I just drank plenty of water. And that goes on throughout the day. And then by the time you're doing, and it goes over 3 days, and I'm not adding any extra salt, day one's fine, right? I haven't cramped up or anything. Yeah, I'm a little bit tired, bit sore, but it's like, I've felt worse. Day two comes around, I'm starting to feel a bit stiff and sore, but not to the point of cramping. So I'm still not cognizant of what's happening to my body at that stage. I'm just thinking, okay, harden up, Lincoln, just move. You've got some distance that you need to cover. Come day three, and thankfully I just cover enough kilometers as it would turn out. But man, my whole body seized up, my legs in particular, my hamstrings, my quads, my calves. As I think about it now, I'm touching those areas because I can remember the pain that I felt, and I just literally couldn't move. I got to the point where I had to stop, and I sat down, and I just couldn't move anymore to get any further. And thankfully I had covered enough ground by that stage, but I'd never experienced anything like that before. I was soaked in sweat as I sat there, and things dried out. I saw my uniform was just white. So my camouflage uniform just had all this white, dried salt sweat on it.
Oh, wow.
And then it clicked in my head. I was like, I have not replaced any electrolytes or any salts in my body. And then I thought of all those people smart putting salt on their food. And it's like, bloody hell, that's what I should have done. And I was like, okay, cool. I've learned from that now. I've got that information. I'm making sure I do that. And I did. So from then I started to regularly add a little bit of salt, even before selection, to my food, more than I'd ever had before once I was on selection. And when we did get to eat, I was like, the first thing I was grabbing was salt and adding salt to my food. Yeah. And I don't know if that was the only reason, but it certainly, I never got any cramps on the actual SASR selection proper from adding salt to my food. And I was just as soaked and just as drenched in sweat. I'd still get those white patches on my uniform where it would show up, but I felt more comfortable and confident because I'd been adding salt and stuff to my food and thankfully I never experienced any cramps on the selection proper, and I covered way more distance on that course and never seized up, never cramped up. So it had to be a good thing. So some hard lessons to learn, and thankfully, I'd snuck in enough. I still would have gone and done it all again, but it definitely makes it nice when you don't have to go through it and have to go through those aspects again, especially when mentally you're good, but physically you just didn't prepare as well as what you should have. And that would have been just I guess some people might call a rookie mistake on my part, as I look back on it, if you didn't have enough salt and stuff like that in your food and those sorts of things, especially being in Australia and the heat and the sweat that you can expect to be expressing from your body.
I bet. So I guess, two tips. One, learn the Australian national anthem, and two, a lot of salt.
Yeah, make sure you add salt. Add salt to your food. Maybe not a lot, but just
but more.
Yeah, but more like I went from having zero salt to not adding heaps, but just making sure that I dashed some salt onto my food whenever we got a chance to eat, which definitely helped.
Nice. I've got actually. You've sorry, it feels like we're doing another.
It feels like an episode.
It feels like an episode. Oh, let's bundle this as an episode.
You'll have to break this. You'll have to break this up. I'll have to break this up. Go.
I got one more question then.
Yep.
Because again, you just raised another thought. Because I've had a memory of when we talked to Nick, and I think from memory, Nick is a Queensland boy, country boy. I think. Yeah. So he's used to. I think he mentioned that he was used to handling firearms.
Yeah, out shooting, driving at a young age, out on their property and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think, from your experience, because I'm picking that you didn't have a background with firearms firearm handling, so did you find that compared to say others that may have that? It's advantage or disadvantage to have or not have previous firearms experience?
That's a good question. You know what? I've never even thought about it. Even when Nick spoke about that, growing up around that, because I guess maybe part of the reason I've never thought about it is because a lot of my friends grew up with firearms in shooting out on the farm and out in the bush and going hunting and that sort of thing. So So that maybe that's why I never really thought of it. I just thought, okay, that's just normal and for a lot of people. But yeah, you're right. I never grew up in and around firearms. So my first introduction to firearms was in the was in the Navy cadets. I was in the Navy cadets in high school. I forget how old I was, maybe fifth form or something like that, maybe fourth or fifth form. And I only did that because maybe it was third form, but I only did that because one of my good friends, Motu Williams, was in the Navy cadets, and so I just wanted to hang out with him some more. So I thought, and then he said, you should come and do this. So I did. I didn't really enjoy it. I saw the Army cadets, and I thought they looked way cooler. And they had cooler uniforms and and I just thought, but my mate was in the Navy cadets, so we did that. But I remember my first introduction. We went out to a range and we shot the 22. And I thought that was cool. So that was my first introduction to that. But I never stayed in the Navy cadets for very long. Maybe a few months. I don't even know if I'd lasted a year, just because I got bored with it. And even though as my mate, I think he ended up moving out of it as well, which was like, it made it a lot easier for me to get out of it. So shot a 22, that was about it. And I think I did that twice. I think there was a couple of times where we went to the range over those few months that I was in there. And then other than that, my first introduction was to the Steyr rifle once I joined the Army. Is there an advantage? Maybe from a learning to shoot perspective, if they've received good instruction from people in the first place about how to handle the weapon and how to shoot, but probably not so much advantage if they've just been out and they've got no skill and they just can pull the trigger or snatch it instead of squeezing the trigger, or they haven't been taught those marksmanship principles. So I didn't feel it for me, probably because I never thought about others potentially having experience and growing up with a lot of shooting and all that sort of stuff. I never viewed it as a disadvantage for me. I just saw it as an opportunity that this is part of the role. This is what I need to learn to be able to perform in my role. And this is what I need to be able to do to get really good at, to protect not only myself, but the guys that I'm going to be on task with. So I'm going to pay attention as well as I can, so that I can apply those skills that are going to help me be a better shot, or be able to better use the weapons more effectively, quickly, and all that sort of stuff. Get it going again if it has a stoppage and all that sort of thing. So, I didn't personally. I didn't view it as a disadvantage. Some people might, but then again, you had Nick and I think it was Gads that were going around practicing with their weapons, and Gads with his son and stuff like that, and doing some room clearances and stuff when you're on the CQB course, because there is a lot of pressure on that course, and like I was saying to Nick, I wish I had been smarter. I could have done something like that too, practice my pistol draw or something, but it's just one of those things that, because I felt we had access to a lot of ammunition, we had a lot of range time, and there were great staff, brilliant staff there that were very, very skilled, experienced, and willing to give you the tips. I just fed off that information and knowledge, and thankfully I was able to apply that as well as I could. Never to the standard as well as what I saw them being able to do, but it helped me enough to be able to progress and do the things that I needed to do in there, and validate and get through those qualifications and that sort of stuff, those qualifying shoots that you needed to do. So a great time.
Wow. Fascinating. That's what I heard was that that you're learning, even if you don't have the experience with firearms, and perhaps this is useful for people that are looking to move into the military space. That you can learn those skills, particularly if you've got good staff. That can help you with those. How proper weapons handling, the drills behind it, clearances and all that sort of stuff, stoppages and dealing with that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you, bro, for sharing that.
All good, brother. I think that's probably enough of an update, because it wasn't really an update. It was more of a...
It was an update. How did we get here?
Yeah, it went from an update and talking about a few bits and pieces to then you having some questions, because I planted some seeds of some of the other stuff I was talking about. Seeds. And became an episode. Anyway,
And this is what happens. This is what happens, Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go on and we start talking, and then we off on tangents.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is useful.
there's been plenty of tangents in here, but yeah. Anyway, maybe that's something we do if we get stuck and desperate, bro. You know what? We just come back on here and then we just fire some more questions at me and share some of those. And maybe we can use this as well, and I'll carry on my own channel, putting up some of that stuff that I spoke about that I won't necessarily worry about adding as ebooks anymore, and just share them on here and on the and on my channel. So we'll see how that goes, eh? But I'll take care of the editing for this one and and do all of that, and I'll hopefully the quality will be all right in terms of the audio. And I don't think there's too much else. Have you got anything else that you wanted to share or comment on aside from how we go off on tangents?
I'm sorry how we go off on tangents. No, other than appreciate that you've got a lot on your plate and that you've got all these different avenues to be able to help others.
Myself.
Express yourself.
Help others.
To help others, yeah. Because and Aotearoa, if you're listening to this podcast, this particular episode or episodes, right, go hit up Joe. Go see what he's doing and what he's on about, because there's a lot of good things there that may connect with you, particularly if you're into the physical health space, or if you're into challenging yourself, or you're into that space in which you want to go, well, how do I get from here to there? It's worth looking at. It's worth touching on. So thank you, bro, for I mean it sincerely, expressing yourself, because now we get to reap some of that benefit. So kapai, bro.
Very kind, brother. Thank you. But I've come to understand that you usually share kind words to me. So thank you very much, bro. Appreciate it. Aotearoa New Zealand, thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you've gained some sort of value, if not a bit of a laugh along the way at us two rambling and waffling on and ranting about different things. And if you have any questions or queries, feel free to continue to either add them in the comments like some of you have been, or just continue to fire us off emails, which we've been really grateful for those. So we will and have been responding to those as well as we can and as soon as we can, and we'll continue to do that. And hopefully you can continue to find some value and stuff in the content that we're trying to provide. So take care, everybody. Stay awesome. Who dares wins, and create a better future. Get out there, get after it, and create a better future. This is Brian Osman and myself, Joe Hotai, co-founders of Epich Aotearoa, Create a Better Future. And this has been your update /episode/episodes here with us today. Take care, and we'll see you soon. You notice, bro, I've been looking at the little camera lens, so it's going to look like I'm looking at people. I'm going to leave this in here. Whereas before, my head and eyes would be down here looking at the screen, looking at you here. Looking at that lens right there where my fat finger's pointing. There. Yeah, that one. Not there.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to do that. There.
I've been meaning to try to do that for a while, but today I thought I'll try and do that. Anyway, I've already said bye and I still record.
Let it.